fourth and final passage in our This Is Us sermon series. We've looked at what it means for us to be a redeemed family of servants, and now we're looking at our mission, a redeemed family of servants on mission. This passage really helps us to understand what that mission could and should look like. So go read the short passage for yourself, read it a few times, spend some time praying, asking God to help you to understand the meaning of this text and how it points us to our Lord Jesus. Pray that our Father would increase your love for the people who will hear you teaching this. Ask God to give you wisdom to apply this text to the lives of the people who you'll be teaching. And pray that the Lord would use this passage to help you to grasp and love the gospel more, so that you would help your hearers to do the same. So as we look at this passage, keep praying. And I'm going to highlight, as I always do, just a few things that stood out in this passage for me. I think there's two very clear sections. The "you are" statements help us see that. You are the salt of the earth, and you are the light of the world. And just to make clear, you are, this is a reality. If you're a Christian, if you're a believer in Jesus, if you've been saved by him, this is what you are. I'm clearly making this very obvious for us to see. You are. And the first one, you are the salt of the earth. If the salt loses its saltiness, how can it be made salty again? So Jesus is saying in this first section, you are the salt of the earth. And the implication is, if that's what you are, be what you are. Now, when we think of salt, most of the time we think of its flavoring properties. Salt brings out the flavor in food. And I think, although we should add savor to the world around us, the primary use of salt that I think Jesus is focusing in on here is, in his day, salt was used as a preservative to stop meat from going bad. In our South African context, we can think of biltong. Biltong without salt will go is meat that will go rotten. So the meat needs the salt to preserve it, to stop it from rotting. And if salt loses its saltiness, the verb that is translated here, loses its saltiness, is used 4 times in the New Testament. Once here in Matthew, once in Luke, and then in Romans 1:22 and 1 Corinthians. Let me write those down so you can go and look. Romans 1 verse 22 and 1 Corinthians 1 verse 20. This verb is translated with the meaning to become foolish. So to lose the saltiness here, Paul translates that same verb as to become foolish. And it's hard not to conclude that disciples who lose their saltiness are in fact making themselves foolish. So Jesus' command here, you are the salt of the world, you are the salt of the earth, don't lose your saltiness. Don't become useless in your effect on the earth. And I think just linking this back, if you look at the verses Jesus just spoken, what we know as the Beatitudes, Matthew 5 verse 1 to 12, and just some examples. So blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Verse 6, blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness. So to be salty Christians is to be Christians who are hungering and thirsting for righteousness in a world that doesn't hold righteousness in high honor. Verse 7, blessed are the merciful, for they shall receive mercy. In a world that is fighting and full of war, our saltiness is seen as we pursue mercy. Verse 8, blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. In, again, a world that doesn't prize purity very highly, our saltiness is seen as we strive for purity. Now, all of these things, righteousness, mercy, being pure, none of those things are true of us in our sinful state. So we need Jesus to make us righteous, to show us mercy so that we can be merciful, to make us pure. Verse 9, blessed are the peacemakers. Only once Jesus makes peace between us and God and us and one another can we be peacemakers in the world. And as we do these things, then we are the salt of the earth. We should have the effect of having a purifying effect, trying to arrest the rot that we see in society around us. And as more people become Christians, it should have the effect that we impact and influence those around us, in our neighborhoods, in our workplaces, in our family lives. We should be salty, stopping the rot in the corruption in our workplaces, or stopping the rot in the language that's used, or the fighting that happens in our family lives, in our marriages. Our marriages should be seen very differently to marriages around us, where marriage is spoken down of. We speak highly of our spouse, and that all of these things are us being salty. We stand out. You are the salt of the earth, so be salty. And then the next, you are the light of the world. You are the light of the world. People do not light a lamp and put it under a bowl, but it gives light. So let your light shine. Now, I don't think it's difficult for us to understand this concept. To see light shining out in the darkness is a wonderful thing. It would be crazy for somebody to light a lamp and put it under a bowl. We can understand that. And then verse 16, let your light shine, is the only imperative. It's the only verb that's an imperative in this section. Let your light shine. This is the command. Let your light shine before others. We need to be living lives that are observable, that they may see your good deeds. And I think this good deeds can link us back to what it means for us to be salty, living observably, that other people see that our lives are different. And what's the result of all of this? Well, we want God our Father to be glorified. You are the light of the world. Let your light shine. Now again, just thinking about our Lord Jesus. Jesus said, I am the light of the world. He said that in John chapter 8, verse 12. So Jesus is the ultimate light that came when he was born. He was the light coming into the darkness of our sinful world. And sin really has darkened society around us. There's no escaping that fact. But Jesus came as the light of the world. But then he says to us, as his disciples, you are the light of the world. So the light of Christ should be shining into the world through us, as Paul says to the Philippians in chapter 2, verse 15. We are to shine like stars in the universe as we hold out the word of life. And we need to shine. We need to let our light shine. We mustn't hide it. We need others shine before others, that they see our good deeds. So we need to be living lives that are observable, all to the glory of our Father in heaven. How does all this impact us in our mission? Well, as we are salty in the world, as our light shines brightly in the world, our greatest hope is that we are drawing people in to the family. We want others to be redeemed. We want others to join God's family. We want others to know of Jesus, who came not to be served, but to serve. We want others to become Christians. And so we are salt, we are light, and we need to be what we are. This compels us to mission, that we will call others to step into the glorious light of Christ. And so I think this is a wonderful passage, just reminding us of the importance of the mission before us. We are to live in such a way that people see us, not so that people will hold us in high regard, but so that people will glorify our Father in heaven, that they will see the light in us isn't ultimately our light, it's the light of Christ, that he has shone into our hearts. And as you carry on thinking about this passage and seeking to live it out for yourself, but also for in our missional communities, that we would be pockets of light, and we want to litter the earth with pockets of light, letting our light shine. Just very important, I haven't mentioned yet, but all of these verbs, the you are, let your light shine, they're all plural. They're plural, not singular. Our saltiness and the brightness of our light will shine, or shines much brighter as we go on mission together. So in your groups, talk through about in your neighborhoods, in your workplaces, in our community, as we seek to impact Africa with the gospel and ultimately to the ends of the earth. How can we become increasingly salty? How can our light shine increasingly brightly, so that people will see us, that we'll have an opportunity to say that the light in us is only there because Jesus is the light of the world and he's shone into our hearts. And so ultimately people will turn to him, be saved, to the glory of our Father in heaven. It's a wonderful passage to dig into. I pray that as you dig into it, it will thrill your heart, that we are these things because of Jesus' impact in our lives, and then it will compel you to go and tell the world of our glorious Lord and Savior Jesus, to the glory of God our Father. Well, God bless as you teach this to others.